Hi, I'm Barbara from Bee's Kitchen and Garden, where I share successful recipes and gardening tips. The recipe today will end up being an absolutely wonderful dinner in one dish: chicken, potatoes, and zucchini all ready to go in a heavenly honey mustard sauce. So we'll make the sauce, we'll get everything ready, put it together, and stick it in the oven. The ingredients you will need are Dijon mustard, honey, 3 medium-sized red potatoes, 1 medium-sized zucchini, or I have 2 smaller zucchinis from my garden, 1 medium to large onion, salt, pepper, cornstarch, milk, and cream. Let's get started. To begin, check your chicken breast pieces. I use skinless, small to medium, I guess medium-sized chicken breasts. My goal here is to make sure they're all about the same thickness. So these that are quite thick, just slice them horizontally. Watch your fingers very carefully because they're a little bit wiggly and a little bit slippery. So there you go. 2 nice pieces about the same thickness. So I'm going to do the same to these 2 because they're both also thicker than what I'm looking for. Well, I ended up slicing all of my chicken pieces horizontally to make sure they're all nice and thin. Now we're going to start with the olive oil. First thing, I'm going to get ready for my baking dish. So I'm putting some olive oil in the bottom. 2 to 3 teaspoons will do. And I'm going to brown the chicken in a skillet, so some olive oil in the skillet. About 2 teaspoons. I use a non-stick pan, so I'll just spread it with my hand today, but basically just to coat the bottom. Now we're going to brown the chicken pieces in the skillet just on one side because it's so much more attractive and it looks great with one side browned. But we're not cooking the chicken all the way through at this point. I have the skillet with the olive oil and it's heating on a relatively high heat because I want to brown one side of each piece of chicken. As you can see, they're all about the same thickness, and that's going to serve us well for both cooking and for serving. Some of the pieces came out a little strange, but that's fine. Just so the thickness is about correct. The chicken is cooking briefly, and let's check and see how they look on the other side. That is perfect. Turn all of the pieces over and turn the heat off. These are looking great, just a little bit brown. I browned them a little more on the top, makes them more attractive, and then I know that they've been cooking enough. These look great. They're a little bit brown on the top. They're not cooked all the way through, but that's okay because we're going to be putting them in the oven to bake. Next, chop up your onion and put it in the same pan. If you need a little more olive oil, add a little bit, and saute the onions until they're soft and transparent. I'm going to wash my cutting board because I never cut one item and then a second item. I always wash it in between. We've had chicken on this. I'm going to wash it before I work with my vegetables. Wash the cutting board and the knife. I thoroughly washed the cutting board and my knife, and now I'm chopping the onions. Because it looks like I need a little more olive oil, I'm going to just add a little bit to my pan and then throw the chopped onions, or put the hot chopped onions into the skillet. While the onions are sauteing in the skillet, I've cleaned up and washed our 3 potatoes, and our 2 zucchini are ready to go. I've been looking at the onions. I think that onion was bigger than I anticipated. I don't want to overwhelm the taste with onion, so I'm going to suggest that for your onions, use about, I think 1 cup would fit with this dish. The rest I'll save and I'll use for another dinner. So there we go. 1 cup of chopped onions, cooked until they're transparent and soft. We're going to pour the onions over the chicken. Yes, that's about right. We don't need any more than that. So we'll save this for another time. Now we're going to cut the potatoes into small quarters so that they can cook through when we're baking, and also make them nicely bite-sized, and add them to the dish. When cutting the zucchini, trim off the bottom and the top, and then make pieces approximately 1 inch or 1.5 inches wide. More or less. Add them to the dish. I'm patting down the potatoes, zucchini, onions, and chicken to give me a nice flat top, because we're going to need to cover it with foil, and we'll want it to sit pretty close to the top of the dish. Now for our sauce. 1/3 of a cup of fresh honey. Can't do better than fresh honey. We buy a large jar and then use this for storage because it's easier to handle. So 1/3 cup of wonderful fresh honey. A little bit more. One-third cup fresh honey. Now we're going to add the mustard. 3 tablespoons of Dijon mustard. 1 tablespoon olive oil. Well, let's get the mustard out so the olive oil can fill the tablespoon. There we go. All right, 1 tablespoon olive oil. Stir this well before adding the other ingredients. Well, the honey and the mustard are mixed. Add 1/3 cup of heavy cream. Yes, it's just 1/3 of a cup, but it does add great flavor. And also add 1 cup of milk. I use 1% milk because that's what I have on hand. Stir again. Get everything mixed in well together. Turn the skillet on low heat. Still has all that wonderful flavoring in it from the chicken and the onions. And add your sauce mixture to the skillet. There may be a few little lumps from the heavy cream, but smash them down and they will eventually cook away. So adding our sauce mixture to the skillet. I'm keeping it on a low heat until it is at a low boil. Stirring, and before it gets too hot, so that I can mix it in, I'm going to add the salt and the pepper. Salt and pepper to taste. I put in 1/2 teaspoon salt and 2 teaspoons of pepper, so 2 half teaspoons. You figure out how spicy or non-spicy you like your sauce, and start with this and see what you think. Now stir, and let's bring this to a slow, low boil. And then we're going to add our mixture of cornstarch and cold water. The sauce mixture is coming to a low boil. I'm turning the heat down a little more, and I'm going to add, you can see that it's not totally mixed in, but that's perfect. You have a little bit of the pepper, a little bit of the sauce. So let's add the cornstarch, 2 teaspoons of cornstarch and 2 teaspoons of cold water, already nicely mixed together. We'll make sure that it's all mixed in, and going to add that to our sauce. This will thicken it and make it absolutely even more delicious. Stir well so you don't get any lumps. This looks well mixed. Let's pour it over our yummy chicken, potatoes, onions, and zucchini very carefully. We're going to cover it with foil and put it in the oven, which has been preheated to 450 degrees for 40 minutes. The potatoes, the zucchini, the chicken, all will cook well in that amount of time and be ready to eat. I've just taken the casserole, the delightful, heavenly honey mustard chicken casserole, out of the oven. I'm going to sprinkle some chopped parsley over the top, and it is ready to eat.